Happy Thursday. Welcome to Motivation U, the podcast. Welcome to Motivation U, the podcast. My name is Bob Ganzak, and we're coming to you live today from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill inside the Coach's Podcast Room here at Celebration Point in Gainesville, Florida. Exit 384 if you're ever driving up or down I-75. Always a great place to stop to see Coach Spurrier's, the head ball coach, in his restaurant here. It's an amazing place, amazing place. Everything is fresh. Chef Mark is absolutely incredible. Drinks, dishes, the ambiance, the museum with all of the artifacts, the helmets here in the Coach's Podcast Room. You have upstairs for more fun and enjoyment. Just an incredible place to be. So if you get an opportunity, make sure you head this way and enjoy Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. As we always talk about, one of the big things about this program is leadership, and we're going to talk about that today with my guest, who I'll introduce in a second. But first of all, I want to share with you that we have an upcoming Dale Carnegie class here in Gainesville. It will start February 7th. It's from 6 to 9:30. You can register online. You can register, pay everything online. Just go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com. That's jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com. Find a course. There's a little button that says Find a Course. Click on that. You'll see the one for the Gainesville class. Go ahead and register for that coming up. We have another one on there in Valdosta that is scheduled for the end of February. We may be moving that, but we'll have one coming up in Lake City also. So if you're in that area, Jacksonville, I just found out this morning that we'll have another one coming in March. So there's a lot of things happening right now, a lot of opportunities. And as I said, this program here, one of my thoughts many years ago was that some of the best leaders in our country, some of the best leaders in business totally, are people that don't carry these names like Gates or Buffett or Bezos. They're the people that live down the street from you, that impact people's lives every day. They come from different areas, different backgrounds, different educational systems, yet they're making an impact on people's lives. And I wanted to take this program and highlight those individuals. And today we have one of those people, one of my favorites, an individual that was a student in my class and has been a graduate assistant for me for a number of times now, Miss Thalia Millan. Thalia, welcome to Motivation U, the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor.
And Thalia has an interesting background and world that we'll get into today. And hopefully I'll put her on the spot a couple of times and ask some tough questions that she struggles a little bit with. I always try to, I have a lot of belief in this young lady. And so I would never put her in a position where she would fail in class. Anytime that we do things together, she always rises to the top. But she runs a company with her dad. It's called Okito America, which we'll talk about. And then her background and some other ideas of what her journey has been for leadership and how she got to where she is right now at a very young age with a huge responsibility that she has. So let's start off. Where did life start for Thalia Millan?
Well, I was born in Havana, Cuba, so that is where my family and I are from. And I had the great opportunity to come to the United States at a very young age. I was about to turn 4 years old. So right there, I turned 4 years old when we arrived, and I've been here ever since.
18, 19 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you remember from that event of leaving your home country
Yeah.
and moving to America?
Well, I don't want to say it was traumatic because I don't think that would be the right word, but it was definitely impactful because I remember not wanting to leave. I had a very close relationship with my grandparents. I used to live with them because my parents had full-time jobs and my mom was still in college when she had me. So, they were still trying to get themselves together, and I spent most of my childhood with my grandparents. So I remember they were telling me that, we were going on a short little vacation, and my grandpa back in Cuba used to be a taxi driver. So I would always tell my parents to have my grandpa come pick me up in the taxi because I wanted to go back home and be with them. But I got to meet amazing people who entered my life and kind of filled that role for me. And even though I grew up without my grandparents, I still had a great relationship with them and had other people that I got to bond with as well. So, yeah.
I've heard many of those stories of you and your grandparents in
Yeah.
class that you shared with the class, which
Yes.
is just, absolutely marvelous. Where did you come to when your family first came to? Did you come directly to Gainesville?
No, actually, we landed in Miami. And we met this amazing, beautiful family who didn't know us, but, they wanted to help and decided to take us in. And they brought us to Gainesville, and they gave my dad a job, and they helped us, get started in this country, and we are forever grateful for that.
So that's an incredible story, and I want to get into that.
Yes.
Did you meet them in the airport, or you had never met these people before? They
Never.
were not waiting for you. You just showed up. How did that happen?
Yeah. So it was pure fate because they're Cubans. They were, visiting their family in Cuba, and their plane, to my understanding, their plane that they had originally booked was canceled. So they had to take another plane, which was the one that we were on. And so my grandfather had given my dad a letter, and he asked my dad not to open the letter until he got to the U.S. because he couldn't express to my dad in words how he felt about his departure. And so on the plane, my dad couldn't wait. He was very anxious, wanted to read it, and he started bawling his eyes out. And in that moment, I remember thinking, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And I was crying, and then my mom was crying. And so we were all crying. And the lady that was sitting behind us, she took notice, and she started talking to us, started to ask what was going on. We explained our situation, and we were coming to the United States with no family.
And nothing.
Nothing. My dad had like $5 in his
and didn't
pocket.
have a job or anything.
Nothing. His shoe even broke when he got on the plane. So he had a broken shoe. We had no money. We were just coming for the opportunities.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, she started having a conversation with us, and when the plane landed, they asked everyone who was coming from the visa lotto, because we had won a visa, which is how we were coming, to please stay on the plane, and everybody just stood up and started clapping. My family was the only one with a child. And so as people were walking out of the plane, they started to hand my dad business cards. And imagine my dad, coming from a little farm in Cuba. He had no idea what business cards were. Mm-hmm. But, he took it in, and people also gave him cash, to help out. We ended up leaving with like $200 in cash that day because of what people gave us. Mm-hmm. And everybody left and we stayed on the plane. Then they asked us to go with the security, and they told us, wait here. We're trying to figure out what's going on because there seems to be a family outside who's waiting for you. And my parents didn't say anything, but they looked at each other and they're like, what family?
We don't know.
We don't
There's
know
nobody
what these
here
people
that
are
we
talking
know.
about. Yeah, exactly. And when we walked out, it was the woman that was
Sitting behind
my mom with her husband. And we ran up to her like we had known them forever, and we hugged them. And he said, if you guys want, I can take you to my family's house here in Miami, and we'll help you out. And when we got to his uncle's house in Miami, that the man opened the door, my dad looks at him and he looks at my dad and he says, I know you. And my dad says, I know you too. And it turns out that the guy was an old coworker of my grandfather back in Cuba. We immediately called my grandparents on the spot and said, don't worry, we are with a good family. Like, we arrived, we're safe. And my grandpa tells my dad, no way. I had a dream that you were going to find this family and that you were going to be okay.
So what
And
was
that's
in the
how it
letter?
was. Well, I've never read the letter. He's always kept that a little bit, to himself. But, motivational stuff is what he's told me, to never let your guard, to never... not believing yourself, never give up, to always try, that a man is never measured by the amount of times that he falls, but by the amount of times that he gets up again.
Yeah.
So, stuff like that.
Yes, and your dad, Orlando Millan.
Yes, sir.
Orlando is, that's how I met you, because you came to your dad's graduation in the
did,
class.
yes.
And just a dynamic individual. Now, the person, that family that Thalia is talking about, Peter has sat in that chair and been on this
Really?
program with me.
Oh,
so
wow.
why don't you share who that family is?
Yes, of course. They are the owners of Miapa Latin Cafe. They are a beautiful family that we love, and are very grateful again for everything that they did to help us out to get started. Yeah.
1890s, and you lived actually in their house, didn't you? For a
I
short
did.
period of time?
For a few months, we lived in their house until we were able to buy our apartment. My parents worked more than 40 hours a week, multiple jobs, but they managed to, only a year after they arrived, to buy their house, their first house in the United States. So.
And when your dad tells that story of buying that house, and brings as the instructor in the class, sometimes it's hard not to get emotional yourself, and you have to stay, focused on what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Yet you're listening to the story, and the story has an impact on you, and your dad's story just had an incredible impact.
Yeah.
And that's 19 years ago. But he had a dream.
He did.
He had a dream, too, about starting his own company. And tell us how that company got started.
Yeah. So he actually, back in Cuba, his passion was not only martial arts, but also teaching. And he decided to, even though he was going to earn less, to leave what he was doing and start working at a karate school. It wasn't his own, but he started working there, didn't know any English, but he definitely had the attitude. And so he ended up being a director only after a year of working there. And again, minimal English. So he really learned, not going to school or anything, he learned the hard way, like confronting it. And, after, I believe it was a year of him being with him, he decided to go for it. And he went all in, and we opened our first school close to, it was on Archer Road as well, but where World of Beer is, in that area, Peach Valley, I think, in that little plaza, he opened his school. And
What year was that?
That was in 2007.
Okay.
Yes. He opened in August, right when my brother was born. So my brother was born a few weeks after we opened.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And now you have a second location.
Now we have a second location.
And that's
yes.
kind of where you come in. Another thing I would say about your dad and about Thalia's dad is, if they were ever to take the words enthusiasm, and charisma and made one word, the only thing they would need for a definition is his headshot.
Oh my gosh.
Because your dad, he just like, he walks into a room and the room lifts up a little bit.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
and we say that about a lot of people. We say that about individuals, like, wow, they can really, make the room, rise and everything. Orlando Milan does that.
does,
There's
yeah.
like no doubt about it. When he shows up, he doesn't have to say a word, and he's there.
Oh, yeah, for
that's
sure.
an incredible thing. So the first time I met you, it was your dad's graduation night.
Yes.
And you came to his graduation. And one of the things I like to do at graduation is students get a certificate, and if there's a boss or a family member, I like to give them the certificate to hand to the student that's graduating. So I handed it to Thalia. And I mean, you walked to the front of that room. That's like, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah,
2 years
probably.
ago. So you walked to that front of the room and you just owned it.
I think so.
Yeah. Where did you learn your ability to, really engage a crowd like that?
Honestly, I know this might be a little cheesy, but I think I was born with it.
Okay.
Ever since I was little, I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed being, in front of a camera or speaking in front of people. Even though I get extremely nervous doing it, I, for some reason, still enjoy it. And so I remember when I was young, I wanted to be a doctor. And my American grandpa, the grandpa that adopted me as a granddaughter, he would tell me, like, when I was in my teens, medicine isn't for you. It's business. And I'm like, business? No way. What I want to do is medicine. And now that I'm in business and that I have this career, I think back to that moment and I'm like, wow, he saw what I didn't see. And I see it now,
Yeah, that's cool.
But
That's
yeah.
good. The nervousness, we all get nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm giving a talk or a speech or teaching a class, if I don't feel those butterflies right before
Right.
it's time, I'm probably not going to do as well as I normally would.
Yeah.
We all, it's that tension that really builds, and so you overcome that. So it's a natural type thing. What is your role now at Okito America?
Well, my role has definitely progressed over the years. I started as a camper, but I've made my way up into management, and that for me was a big accomplishment because, I always feel like, yes, even though it's a family business and I work with my parents, that doesn't mean that I have exceptions. I have to work just as much or more than everybody else to kind of shine in my way because I'm the family. You know what I mean?
Right.
So right now I get to deal with employees, so that's fun. I deal with my team at both locations. I deal with everything that has to do financial. I work a little bit with the social media as well, events, parents. I still try and get involved as much as I can with the kids because I enjoy that as well. So I'm everywhere, really. I get to be involved in almost everything. So.
How many employees do you have overall?
Oh gosh, we have more than 15. That's for sure. Maybe 20, off the top of my head.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
yes.
you mentioned you started as a camper.
Yeah.
Tell us what your company is, how it operates, who is its target, and just an explanation of what goes on.
Yeah. So our company again is Okito America, and we started as a martial arts school, but we eventually opened our after school as well, which also incorporates martial arts. And basically, we work with kids as young as 3 years old all the way up until their teens. And basically, what we offer is learning never stops after school. So we pick up the kids from local schools here in the area, and once they come to us, they continue on throughout the rest of the day learning Spanish, science, nutrition, martial arts. We do sports, help them with their homework, and much, much more.
How long are they with you after school?
They are with us until 6 p.m.
Okay.
every day.
So
Yeah.
school gets out, what, 3:30 or?
Depends. Some schools get off a little bit earlier, 1:50 around
Okay.
that time. Some schools too. So yeah, they're with us for quite a few hours.
And how many people are in that aftercare? How many kids do you usually have in there?
Well, it honestly always depends,
Okay.
but we do have them divided up into groups, and each group has about approximately 20 to 25 kids. So like small classes, you know?
Wow.
And we have about
Small classes. Pretty big
we have
class there.
about 4 groups in each location.
So you're impacting 100 kids after school.
We're trying, yeah.
And the camps, I see you have camps.
Yeah. We offer day camps whenever school is out. So whenever there is no school or it's a holiday, we open because we know that parents continue working. They don't always get the same holidays at the school. So we offer to open to help families that need the service.
We're talking with Thalia Millan from Okito America, a local company which is a family-owned business with her and her dad and her mom, and I'm sure little brother is getting his toes
He's
into the
15
sand.
now. He's getting there,
He's
yeah.
getting there. And Thalia is a graduate of the Dale Carnegie program, and outstanding student, I may
Thank you.
add, and then has helped me in classes for the last year as a graduate assistant, and very talented in that area, impacts people's lives very much. So you've got some leadership skills, and I knew when you came to the class, one of the things we teach is leadership. You already had a lot of leadership skills. Where did you refine or build those skills?
Yeah.
What impacted you in your lifetime?
You know, my dad. There's my dad and my mom, really. Growing up, I saw them always work hard and fight for everything that they ever wanted for in life. They never gave up. They had dedication. They had perseverance. And that's what I grew up with. And of course, like you said, my dad, he walks into the room and immediately he's the leader. And so, growing up with that role model, I think it definitely rubbed off a little bit at least.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met your mom.
No,
and,
I
and
don't
all
think
the time
so.
that I've had you in a class and classes, and your dad in classes, and he's come to visit classes that you were involved in.
Yeah.
Tell me about your mom. What is her background? And you said she was going to college when you were born.
Yeah.
Talk about that influence that she's had on your world.
Yeah. So compared to my dad, she's definitely more timid and more, quiet. But when she was in Cuba, she graduated as a nurse. So she had her nursing degree. She worked as a nurse for a few years. And then when she got here, she wasn't able to follow nursing again, but she was always my dad's right hand. So, they were a team. They worked together, and she was always by his side, good or bad. And there were plenty of good and plenty of bad. But she, to me, is also an amazing role model. Sometimes I think of words in Spanish and they don't come out in English, but she's a great supporter. That's what it is. She's a great supporter and very loving. And even though she's quiet, she always has amazing things and very powerful things when she does speak.
And that was going to be my point, is you used the word timid. And the stories that your father has told in class and that you told in class about your mother, people should never confuse timid with weak.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because she was kind of the rudder on a ship that allowed your dad to do the things that he did.
Exactly.
And kept everything going on a straight line.
Exactly.
You know, that strength. You've spoken many a times, and I would love to have met your grandparents at some time. What influence did they have on you? And then years after you had been in America, what was the relationship like with your grandparents at that time?
Yeah. So for me, since I had created such a strong bond with them before leaving, I always try to keep a good communication with them. And I remember every week my grandma would send me handwritten letters with like stuff to draw, little paper cut pictures, and I would open my letters and read them, and it just filled my heart. But my grandparents to me always meant hope, because you know, for them to come, for anyone from Cuba to come to the U.S., it's a very difficult process, and it takes a long time. As you can tell, you know, my grandparents they weren't able to come until 3 years ago. So they're still very recent.
They live here now.
They do. We had the great opportunity to be able to bring them from Cuba, so they've been with us for a few years now. But you know, when I was little, I never knew when I was going to be able to see them again. I never knew if they were going to be able to come. And that was hard, because I remember being at school and my friends saying to me, you know, I'm going to my grandma's house this weekend, or grandpa's picking me up. And I'd be like, I don't get that, you know? But when they did come, I was like, this was all worth it. This really was all worth it. And so I'm forever grateful to be able to have them with me now, and I live with them now. So I'm very happy.
Do your parents and your grandparents and yourself, do you ever visit back to Cuba?
I haven't in about 5 years.
Okay.
But yes, we do try, because we still have most of our family over there. We've only been able to bring my 4 grandparents. That's it. So the remainder of our family is still in Cuba, and we are trying to make a trip very soon. So we'll see.
That's good. I've met some families from Cuba that don't go back.
Yeah.
And then others like Peter, they like to go back. I think Soli, you know,
Yes.
born in Cuba, they like to go back. So that's.
I mean, we
that's
have
really
family
interesting.
over there, so for us, it's more than anything to visit family.
Yeah, it's just like driving across
Yeah.
the country to go visit family, or
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you're actually just flying over some water to get there. I tell you something personally.
Yeah.
I have a little granddaughter. Her name is Sophia. She's 2, and there's many a times, most of the time, that I'm with her. I think about your relationship with your grandparents, and I put in my head that I want to make the impact on that young lady that your grandpa and grandma made on you.
Yeah.
You know, because you've told so many of those stories, and they're so heartwarming, and you know. So I want you to know that you inspire me with your stories.
Wow.
To be even a better grandpa than I could be. And so when I'm with little Sophia, I'm just like,
That's amazing, really.
amazing.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break here in a moment. We're coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill inside the Coach's podcast room. My guest today is Thalia Millan from Okito America, family-owned business here in Alachua County and center of the state of Florida. And we're going to learn more about your background and some of your your leadership styles. And I'm going to try to quiz you on a couple of things also, just to see. But we'll be coming right back to you after these brief messages.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere. If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Welcome back to Motivation U, the podcast, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill here at Celebration Point. My guest today is from Okito America, local company, family-owned, Thalia Millan. We've been talking about her life coming here from Cuba at a young age and the people that influenced her and the way that she has an incredible relationship with her grandparents. So, yeah, that's good. If you have a question, if you want to ask Thalia a question or myself, please just send it into Facebook in the comments section, and we can do that. And we do have some more classes coming up here. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be able to help us in the next one?
Yes,
all right.
I'm
Have
very
you talked
excited.
to Matt and Doreen about that already? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we start February 7th, and it's 8 weeks. If you want to get involved, go to jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com. jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com. Find a course. You'll get right to the Gainesville. You can sign up right there and register all at one time. Before we go further, you didn't make graduation the last class.
No, I didn't.
You bailed out on me.
I know.
And didn't make graduation of our last class here this past fall.
Yes, I know.
One of the things that happened is you did not get your certificate.
True, yeah. My graduate assistant certificate.
But I brought it with me today.
Oh, wow.
So.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow.
And so, yep. You got that. So I thought I would bring that and have that for you today.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. So leadership.
Yes, sir.
You're a young lady, early 20s, immigrated to America, a lot of challenges growing up. What advice do you have for other young people in your generation as far as leadership is concerned, and what are the opportunities out there?
I think there's a lot that goes into that, honestly, but believing in yourself is, to me, very important. Trying your absolute best, not giving up, having dedication and perseverance. But to me, what I think really impacted me the most was challenging myself. And maybe this is a silly comparison, but it's like when you go to the gym, you know, you go and you lift 20 and you say, oh, wow, 20 is very heavy. I can't do 30. But you try 40 and you say, wow, I can do 40. And then you do 45. And then you do more than what you thought you could actually do. And that's where the growth comes in, when you challenge yourself. And you succeed in that challenge. And even if you don't succeed the first time, that's where trying again and never giving up comes in. So my challenge would be, or my advice would be, to always challenge yourself.
There's many barriers that are put up that hold us back. There's things in life that go on, be them laws or rules or people or events.
Yeah.
Everybody tackles those. Everybody has to deal with those. The barrier that bothers me the most is the one we put upon ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that 6 inches between your ears when you say that I can't do this, or there's not a possibility. That's the barrier. Like at my organization, my company, MotivationU, or through Dale Carnegie, that's one of the things that we try to deal with.
Yeah.
You were fortunate. You had a dad that mentored you and a mother that mentored you into believing in yourself.
Yeah.
My kids had that from their mother and myself, that, we saw that early on. I didn't have that in my life. Other people don't get that.
True.
So finding that mentor is difficult.
Ideal.
What would you suggest to, like, another 22-year-old young lady that really wanted to have something impactful in her life? What advice would you give her?
I would tell her to go out there and step out of her comfort zone. I mean, at least for me, stepping out of my comfort zone has helped me grow. Because, again, it's like I was saying earlier, you don't realize how much you can do until you're actually doing it, and you try and you go and you put yourself out there, even though it's uncomfortable. The Dale Carnegie class for me was stepping outside of my comfort zone, for sure. I wanted to do the class. I was going in there, excited and eager to learn, but it was at times, sometimes uncomfortable, But once I finished that talk, that feeling of accomplishment of I knew I could do it is uncomparable, really. So.
And we try to, even as you come back 1 time, 2 times, 3 times as a graduate assistant, I try to find ways of getting you even further outside your comfort zone, because that's where the growth is. It continues out there on that horizon.
Exactly.
So you oversee or manage a number of people. How would you describe your leadership style? if you were to just, like, in a couple of sentences, tell people, this is my leadership style.
I'd like to consider myself a cool leader, for sure. But I pay attention to all of my employees. I try and give them, time and attention so that they feel like, that I care, because I genuinely do. So I would consider myself a caring and respectful leader.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. You work with your dad, so your dad's like the boss.
Yeah.
Although you have a lot of responsibility and you are a boss also. Your dad's the boss. On this program, we've had a couple of father and sons, sons that worked for their fathers, fathers that had sons that worked for them. I've had Stephanie Stuckey on from Stuckey's, who she worked with her dad. And I still always remember that line that her dad told her, the thing that drove her. I mean, here's a very accomplished person. She was, she is an attorney. She was in the state senate in Georgia, or the House, one of the two. And her dad said, "You couldn't run a lemonade stand. How are you going to run, these restaurants, companies?"
Right.
You know?
Wow.
And she overcame that, from that standpoint, as CEO of the company now and owns most of it, which is really cool. What are or is the challenges that you deal with as a daughter working with a dad?
I mean, you really just said it. It's sometimes being able to separate that relationship of daughter and profession. You know what I mean? So there have been times where it is frustrating and it can get difficult because I sometimes have to bite my tongue and say, I'm not talking to my dad right now. I'm talking to my boss. So I have to talk professionally. And then there are also times where it's the other way around. Sometimes I feel as though I'm not being addressed as a professional. I'm being addressed as a daughter. And I have to say, hey, remember where we are. Remember what we're doing right now. Please, address me as though. And I think over the time, it's gotten better because, it does get a little bit of getting used to. I lived with my parents, and then after I moved out, it takes time. But I think now we're in a very good place and we understand each other. I think that's key, as well as we know how to communicate with each other. So, yeah.
I worked for my dad for a while. Well, the part-time stuff as a kid, and he owned his own company, a little print shop in Detroit, and it was part of my life. I worked there in the summer. That's what you did as a young person. But after I got out of college, it was kind of predetermined that son was going to go work with dad, no matter what my degree was in. And so I went to work with my dad, and I struggled with what you are talking about, that the difference between boss and dad.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I didn't know the Dale Carnegie principles back then, but Principle 17, where you see things honestly from the other person's point of view, I didn't know that at that time. And I didn't realize that my dad was struggling as much as I was struggling. He didn't know how to treat me, his son. He told me that many years later, that that was a tough time on him too. We tend to only see it from our view, yet when you try to see it from your dad's view, or in my case from my dad's view, I didn't realize that he was struggling with that too.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an incident that happened. It was just after I got married, and it was in the winter. I was driving to work, and it was icy road. Gentleman in front of me lost control of his car on the icy highway, spun out and hit me and totally wrecked my car, spun me up the hill, and I couldn't get to work. We didn't have cell phones in 1980, 81. It was 1981 at the time. We didn't have cell phones.
Right.
So I had to wait until I got taken to the police station to call my dad.
Wow.
And that was the day that I decided I wasn't going to work for my dad anymore. Because when he answered the phone, I was late for work, of course. He answered the phone. He just dropped it on the table and said to my mom, who also worked there, "It's your son." He didn't want to hear what happened, nothing. And that was the day that, I said in my mind, this isn't healthy.
Yeah.
This is not healthy.
You really have to learn to separate those two relationships. Yeah.
There was no empathy. There was no, are you okay?
Right.
Is everything all right? I actually had a police officer drive me to work because my car was
Wrecked.
it was wrecked.
Yeah.
And those are things that, I guess I wasn't smart enough or old enough to talk about non-negotiable standards at that time, but I guess my dad crossed that line into a non-negotiable standard.
Yeah.
But it probably helped our long-term relationship because my dad and I mean, we were best friends. So
That's awesome, though.
but so the influence that your dad has had on you, the mom has had on you, how about your peers? As you, I mean, you like to travel, you like to post things on social media and all over. Well, not everybody is running a company at your age. And so your friends and the people you are around, how do they influence you inside and outside of work?
Most of my friends are from work.
Ah,
But, I have a small circle of friends. I'm very selective, not going to lie. But everyone that I try to be around is warming and they are positive. That for me is very important because I want positive vibes in life in general. So surrounding myself by people who project that to me is very important. And so I'm very lucky that I can say that right now my inner circle consists of people like that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, one of the things that we talk a lot about in Dale Carnegie is communication. And, what is the importance to being a strong communicator in your world? Because you're talking to kids at times, you're talking to parents.
Yeah.
You got teenagers, you got 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
What is the communication challenge in your world as far as a leader and business person?
It's very challenging because you always have to be adjusting the way that you speak to people. Obviously, if I'm talking to a 7-year-old, I'm going to speak to them a certain way. And if I'm talking to a 15-year-old, I speak to them a different way. When I speak to my team, I try, because of my age, and this is something that I also struggle with, I feel like when I communicate, I try to be professional. Obviously not strict, but professional so that I can gain that respect from those that work for me who are older. So I definitely do have to adjust it. And when speaking with parents, I try to be a little bit even more professional because I do deal with a lot of parents that, are doctors and lawyers, and sometimes that can be a little bit intimidating, and I want to, do a good job.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting because, again, right there, what we were just talking about a little while ago is that's a barrier that you put in your own mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are things that are not, you might say that because somebody's a doctor, that's a barrier. It's not.
Right.
That's what their profession is.
True.
And they're investing money in your company
True.
for you to work with their child. But you tend to put that barrier there.
That comparison shouldn't be there, but
so that's something you can work on. And the other one is with your peers, the ability to, or the people that are older than you, that you're their supervisor. Again, self-served barrier. And because really age is not a matter in that. We make it that way. But the fact is, it's your company, it's your family company, and you conduct yourself in a very professional manner.
Thank you.
So it doesn't matter if they're younger, same age, or older. People are going to respect that. And we tend to put that into our own minds that, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I've had younger people that I worked for, and I don't think as the older person I ever thought, that young whippersnapper, they're not going to tell me what to do.
Right.
When they earn your respect, and you have to earn their respect, it's a two-way street.
True.
From that standpoint.
Yeah.
So communication is pretty clear in that communicating with different groups and the confidence of that. How about one of the other things we talk about in Dale Carnegie is our people skills. And when you're in working with your team and a group, what are some of the challenges that you find out about other people's personalities?
Like I was saying earlier, I try to be very positive, and sometimes, well, I feel like a lot of the times people tend to complain more than they do say the good stuff, you know? So I deal with a lot of complaints, and I try to always have a smile on my face and project the opposite. So, yeah.
That's good. I like that. Young kids, what do you do to help those young kids? What are some of the techniques that you utilize to help the youngsters build that belief in themselves?
Well, putting them out there, giving them courage, motivating them, telling them that they can, that, being there for them, doing little things, something as little as showing up to their school play, or something as little as going to their graduation. Giving them that support, I think, is very motivational and can be very impactful. So
Because kids, you must get, with 100 youngsters coming into your program every single week, it's got to be, a cornucopia of different
it's
personalities.
Yeah, for sure. I've learned so much. We've had a variety of different personalities come in, kids who struggle with ADHD, kids who struggle with OCD, autism, and it's been a learning process for me as well, learning how to help these students that don't understand or that can't function the same way as most students do, So it's fun, it's challenging, and it's amazing.
The bullying that goes on in youngsters' lives.
Yeah.
Do you see that? My guess, and this is not an educated guess whatsoever, is that you may see a lot of the kids that get bullied come to your programs so they can learn to build that confidence. And
For sure.
what is that process like? And what do you see in that work? Because that's something that sticks really close to my heart. I don't like cyberbullying. I don't like. I don't care if you're 70 years old and you're sitting there talking down to other people. I'm going to call you out on it.
Right.
We need to treat each other better all through the world. But what do you see in that young age bullying?
Yeah, we definitely, no school is perfect. Bullying can occur in any place that you go to, but we train our employees to be on top of it. And we always try and make our students feel as though they can approach us and as though they can talk to us and tell us anything that they're feeling. And we always tell them, come let us know immediately, because if we address the issue right when it happens, we can avoid it from growing or from it happening again. So we try to stay very attentive, keep, again, that good communication, not only with the students, but with the parents as well. Having the parents involved, I think, is also key. But not only that, in the martial arts itself, like, the students learn to have, to stand up for themselves, to have confidence. Yeah. So that is also very, very important and very,
I
involved.
see that, yeah.
Yeah. So
That's got to be a huge challenge. Now, the company started in 2007, so it's 15 years ago. Do some of those youngsters from 2007, 8, 9, do they come back and visit, or do you stay? And in that mindset, what did they take from that into their now young adult life from your program?
Yeah. Well, I have an amazing example. One of, the first student, besides myself, the first student that we had at Okito back at the original location, he was with us for some time, left, came back, and then he started working for us. So we actually have had many students who have come back to be a part of our team, to be a part of our family. And so that has been very rewarding to see how we have impacted them in a way that they want to make this their career, you know?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's got to make you feel good
Oh, yeah.
when you see that. How about the people that you went through the program with? Do you ever stay in touch with any of them that are not employed?
For sure. I have them all on Instagram. But yes, I see them every once in a while if they're still in town. Some, I just keep in touch, virtually or, through social media platforms. But it's definitely nice to see where all these people have gone in life and keeping that relationship as well is awesome.
We're speaking with Thalia Millan from Okito America, a family-owned company here in Alachua County in Florida. And they immigrated about 19 years ago.
In 2004.
So about 19 years ago from Cuba. Let's talk about the future. Where do you want to go? What are some of your dreams, desires, as far as being this business person? What are some of the things that you'd like to see in the future?
I wanna talk to people. I wanna express the knowledge that I have. I want to write a book. I want to continue with the Dale Carnegie course. I feel that has continued to be very important and impactful in my life. And every time that I come back, even though as a graduate assistant, I always leave learning something new. And it's like, it's the same class, but yet I keep learning and learning. So that is definitely in the plans, traveling, because I want to get to know cultures and places. And just continuing to prosper and grow in my career.
So you say, cultures, you're bilingual.
I am.
Which you mentioned earlier that sometimes you don't know how to express yourself. You think in one way, but you can't express it in English. Where did you, about what age did that tipping point happen where you really felt comfortable with speaking English all the time?
Yeah. Well, Spanish was my first language. I came to the U.S. not knowing any English. And since I was little, I did grasp it very quickly. I have very fond memories of when I started school here in the U.S. I remember not understanding anything that people were saying to me, and it sounded very like Chinese. That's how I can describe it. It sounded like Chinese. And I remember my friends who I had just made, who were, 5 years old at the time, would pick up little toys. Apple. Sorry.
I don't want you to get away.
Yeah, no. They would pick up stuff and show it to me, and and that's how I started learning. And since I learned so quick, I actually ended up at 5-6 years old being my parents' translator for a very long time because they didn't speak English.
Because your parents didn't speak English either.
Exactly.
When they came here. And what do you speak at home?
Spanish. Only Spanish. My grandparents don't speak English. My grandmother was an English teacher back in Cuba, so she taught English to Spanish speakers. So I can be bilingual with her. With my siblings, I do tend to speak more English just because that's the language that they're more comfortable in. But with my parents, Spanish. And I do nowadays feel like, since I do speak more English at work, sometimes when I speak Spanish, I have to do it a little bit more to get back into it, if that makes sense. And so I motivate myself to speak more Spanish because sometimes I also have to deal with parents who don't speak English. And since I learned how to read and write in English first and Spanish second, sometimes that can be a little bit more difficult for me. And then sometimes I'll think of a Spanish word and I can't think of the English word. So it's,
How do your friends that don't speak Spanish, when they come to your house, how do they interact with your parents? And
they learn Spanish. Yeah, they got to learn.
there's no doubt, right?
Yeah.
So-
They know little words here and there, and I teach them, so.
My son is married to a Cuban lady.
Really?
Sachi is her mom and dad.
Oh,
We've kind of figured came over about the same time Peter and his wife came over the first time that they came from Cuba.
Okay.
We've kind of figured those dates out. So he's learned himself Spanish, but they speak. Sachi's mom still really doesn't speak English at all,
Right,
and
right.
they've been here since the 1980s.
wow.
So
Yeah.
it's the way the world is, I guess.
I am.
I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having
It's
me.
such an honor to have you and being a part of this.